Wednesday, 8 p.m., and we're back, just like we said we would last week. Welcome, everyone, to 14 Talks Ramadan edition. I'm your host, Ali Hassan, and tonight we have another interesting, perhaps a little bit of controversial topic. But hey, that's what we do here at 14. We like to jazz it up a little bit. And to help me lead these conversations are two amazing minds. Number one, you see in front of your screen is a Islamic theologian, lecturer, someone who's going to bring deep insights and his expertise to the table, to the virtual table, that is. And I'm delighted to have him join us this evening. To my left is another individual, a brand new guest, a new face to the whole talk show slash podcast scene. And she brings also a wealth of knowledge. She's a tenured primary school teacher who has firsthand experience dealing with children who are actually fasting and the effects that they have. Why am I speaking of this? Because that's the title of this evening. It's Too Young to Fast, Navigating Fasting for Children. And I'm very excited to talk about it. I know you're going to be, inshallah, excited. It's for anyone that's a parent, whether you're an uncle or aunt, you have nieces, nephews, and I'm sure around the dinner table, you've spoken about this, perhaps even sparked a debate or two. We, of course, are not wanting to cause any debates, but hopefully by the end of this 30-minute period, we're going to be able to inspire and have more meaningful conversations with one another. So just before we begin, a special message to you guys out there. In our first episode, we had, if we accumulate both platforms, YouTube and Facebook, we had about 350-ish views so far, which is great. And thank you for all those that tuned in. But there were about like 20 some odd that only subscribed, no more than that. It's a little bit puzzling. It's incredible to see that. You know where I'm going with this. I would like to request each and every one of you to go ahead and subscribe to the 14 YouTube channel. And let's see if we can, before the end of Shahr Ramadan, reach our goal of 1,000. And I believe we can, but it's up to you. And so if you do it yourself, if you ask your friends and family members to do it as well, that would be amazing. Right then, let's get to it. Sayyidina, if I could come to you first. When it comes to this age gap, like we know, I'm going to make some assumptions. The first assumption is when it comes to girls, it's 9. Because we're very short of time, we kind of come right, we have to dive right into it. It's the age 9, Islamically speaking. But for boys, it's a significant difference in age. Why? Why is that, sir? If you can enlighten us.
Thank you for having me, Ali, on your
Pleasure.
podcast, on your show. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. It's a very common question, this one that you asked. Why is it 9 for girls and 14 or when puberty hits for boys? There are two aspects that I want to relate to this. I mean, it's very common knowledge as well, so I'm not going to be speaking something very, very new as such.
Sure.
The fact is that normal time for a girl to gain puberty is around 9 years of age. And for boys, it is 14, sometimes 15, sometimes it could be earlier. Now, that's the one thing that we can talk about as a general awareness for everybody who's a human being. They know that this could be a situation that arises. Now, the Sharia aspect is that, first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when to give taklif or responsibility to the human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with his ilm, with his mutlaq ilm, or the total ilm that he has, he's all knowledgeable. He considers girls are ready to take responsibility at the age of 9. They're mature enough to take responsibility at the age of 9, whereas boys are not yet. If you look at it, because we look at it from a worldly aspect, from a material aspect, because we are hungry and thirsty, especially in our country where, if it's the summer, it is really, really long, especially if you go to the northern parts of the country. And then we start thinking only from the material and the physical aspect of it, because it's so long. How will somebody remain thirsty and hungry for such a long time? And it is a challenge. It was never meant to be easy. Otherwise, everybody would do it. And you and the good sister here will be probably been receiving comments like, I would never be able to do it at work. I mean, I'm amazed how you guys do it and all that. Comments from people who are non-Muslim. because the fact is that it's not easy. Now, it is not meant to be easy. Just give me a minute. I understand you're bursting to speak, but give me a second. I know
Go for it.
Now, the thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when to give responsibility to somebody. So he considers girls to be ready at 9, and he considers boys to be ready a little bit later. And in that case, you can also say about every kind of worship for that matter. Any ritualistic, any what defines or manifests a person as a follower of that religion, for example, praying for that matter. Why do we pray in this way? Why do we pray in such a language which you're not comfortable, which you don't understand? So those questions can be asked by anybody at a rational level.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best because we are his creation.
Okay, so we can draw a line under that. This is something that's been ordained, right, by the Almighty himself because of his infinite wisdom. That's what it pretty much comes down to. I'm going to go over to our second guest, and apologies to everyone, especially our second guest. I didn't say her name. So who we have with us, of course, I gave her accolades. I gave her all the merits that I could that I found, but I forgot to give her name. That's Sister Hena Zahra Jafry. So sister, apologies for missing out on that. But if I could come to you now. So Sayyidina has given us the Islamic lens when it comes to fasting. If I can ask you for somebody, let's say, who's on the ground, who deals with children day in and day out, who gets to see them as if they were fasting, and I'm sure you see them, do you feel that 9 is too young? Like from that psyche of a child, what is it that you've observed physically and emotionally? Are they able to fast all day?
Absolutely. I think we shouldn't underestimate children. They're a lot more resilient than what they let on. And again, obviously taking into fact their health conditions and any other underlying illnesses. I'm not telling you go and tell your 9-year-old child to go and fast tomorrow. However, saying that, I absolutely wholeheartedly, as a professional in the classroom and as a parent at home, think a 9-year-old is able to fast, as long as, again, you're gauging it accordingly.
Right. So, have you found children happy to fast? Are they the ones that engage perhaps in conversation with their parents and be like, I want to fast today, I want to wake up for suhoor? Or is it the other way around where you see parents saying, nope, like Qibla just said earlier, it's in the bylaws, it's in the constitution, Islamically, if I can use those words, you have to do it. End of. What have you
Honestly
found?
speaking, from my experience, you find children are more passionate about fasting, and you find parents are more reluctant, if anything.
Reserved, yeah.
And I think as parents, sometimes we are a hindrance to our children and somewhat dampening that passion a little bit. If you know your child is passionate about fasting and you've instilled that love within them and they're perfectly able to and healthy to fast, I think you should absolutely promote that. Again, considering their health conditions, considering any underlying illnesses, as a parent, you genuinely do know what's best. And as an educator, I think that's where you work in sync with the parents, because both of you, at the end of the day, it's pivotal. The child's health,
Okay.
safeguarding that child, their well-being, at the end of the day, that's the most crucial thing.
Nice one. Thank you for that. Sayyidina, if I come to you and I want to kind of give you the more harder questions. Well, I'm trying, but you seem to always make them sound easy, the answers anyway. Let's say we have a scenario, 9-year-old girl, right? The boys obviously are lucky. They don't have to do it till they're like 13, 14, 15, etc. 9-year-old girl, first time she's about to fast, and she's struggling, right? However, the parents, because they know what's stipulated by the religion, by the faith, they are saying, nope, tough. Sorry, daughter, you have to go to school. All day you're fasting, PE, whatever your normal sort of process is. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the weather is, you're fasting. Are these parents committing a sin? Are they going to be held accountable according to the religion?
Yeah, good question. We've got a very simple answer, actually, but I'll give you the technical answer here.
Sure.
Because you're giving me hard questions, let's give you the difficult answers.
Right back at me. I knew you were going to do that.
Now, there's a term which is called haraj in Arabic, in Sharia, haraj. In Urdu also you use the term haraj, but the haraj is basically any damage any loss that might happen. It is not permitted in Islam. For example, take the example of wudu. If you can catch a cold, if you fall sick because of the water, the usage of water, you are meant to be doing tayammum. If your health gets damaged, if there's a haraj on your health, then that part is not allowed, that part becomes prohibited on you so that you remain safe as a person. Similarly for fasting, if fasting causes damage to you as a child, whether it's 9, 10, 11, 12, or 14, or 35 for that matter, whatever age you are, if it can cause implications to your health, on your well-being, then you are allowed not to fast.
Right.
Now, this what happens is when parents, when they know that, okay, the child is at the age of taklif, girl or boy, doesn't matter. Taklif being this time of responsibility where people take religious responsibility.
Sure.
So then the person is fasting, and now they are being weak. They're getting weaker by the minute. For example, in the daytime, they're going to school. They're lacking sleep, for example, because they've woken up for suhoor and fajr and all that. Then didn't have a chance to go to sleep, all that stuff, and then they get tired in the school. And by the time they come back home and they are being very feeble, or they might collapse or something, it is important to make sure that that doesn't happen. It is important for the elders to realize, for whoever the person might be.
So
that
the
if it's
onus
going to,
you're putting back onto the parents themselves. They need to be
yes,
well aware.
because they are supposed to be the wiser ones. That you can't stick to what we call, as a, it's not without any feeling fasting. You have to have an understanding of humanity there, because if you're unable to fast, you're allowed to break your fast and do the qada later on, whenever you can. Or they do it later on outside of the month of Ramadan. So it is extremely important to know your child, first of all, when, especially in the first few years of when they start fasting, and know how well they can take whatever. For example, if sometimes boys do this often, they go and play sport in school and all that, they're only 13, 14, 16, whatever the age might be.
Right.
And then by the time afternoon comes, they're thirsty, obviously. And they've been shouting and jumping around because in the morning they're all energetic and they're also keen on the fast. So they forget that it's a long day. It's going to be till 6 o'clock or 6:15 or whatever the case might be. By the time 4 o'clock comes, they're literally, suffering. And you don't let the child pass out. You're not meant to be doing that. You want to make sure that he takes water, and then he's more intelligent next time around.
So lots of logic and common sense comes into
Absolutely. Play. Without that, it doesn't happen. So remember, there is no haraj in Islam. It's not allowed. You cannot damage somebody for any. There's no haraj in Islam. Yes.
Is that the South Asian way to say haraj, or is that the Arabic way to say it?
Arabic way to say haraj. In the South Asian way, we say koi haraj nahi hai ji.
Koi haraj nahi hai. We eat a little syllable or something in there in between. Okay, so, no worries.
But the concept is no damage, no loss, nobody should be suffering in that way.
I'm not going to segue to our sister Hena, the teacher. In your travels as a teacher, have you spotted any red alarm bells, red flags, where a child that is fasting, you've noticed, okay, hold on a second, this perhaps should not be happening? What is it also that you look out for to ensure this is not happening? Maybe you wanted to report back to the parents.
Yeah, so firstly, I would say communication is absolute key. You need to be transparent, completely transparent. And I think that's where a lot of parents unfortunately lack that communication. They've made a decision with their children that their children are going to be fasting, yet they haven't made any effort to sort of relay that communication forward to the teachers. But in terms of being the professional, being the educator, obviously these things come to you naturally. What you are looking for are signs of fatigue, symptoms of fatigue. Is the child lethargic? Is that child lacking in their academic progress? Are they tired? Are they dehydrated? You're looking for all these signs and symptoms. And like I mentioned earlier, you're using your initiative and you're making that crucial judgment as the primary carer of that child within that circumstance. And you make that call that, hang on a second, this child is, I mean, it links in Islamically perfectly with what Syed has just explained as well. There should be no force at the end of the day, especially when you know the child is struggling. you need to communicate that immediately with the parent and make that rational decision at that moment of, I don't think this child is ready. They're slipping under the radar. I need to do something about it. You've got to make sure parents are communicating with you. Children have got snacks on hand for those who are fasting.
Right.
And if they need to open their fast or break their fast, they have that option.
A
Absolutely,
backup is
always.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah. You referenced communication just now. So what mode of communication are you referring to? How can parents let the teachers know?
I mean, at the end of the day, the parents and the teacher, both of their main goal, it's it's the child at the end of the day. You both need to work in line with each other. And if there's no communication there, at the end of the day, it's the child who's going to suffer. So even if it is 5 minutes, an email you're going to write to the school, or a quick 5 minute conversation at the door when you're dropping the child off in the morning, that look, my child is fasting today. However, if at any point you feel they do need to break their fast,
Right.
they've got a PE lesson, like you mentioned. It's what, 30 degrees out there. Obviously not talking about the current weather, but during the long summer months. And, you know, if you feel at any point the child needs to break their fast, here I've brought in a snack for the child if that's what you need to do. So you're both working in line with each other.
Okay. Thank you for that. I am conscious of time because I don't know if I said this before, but the half hour goes pretty quick. Sayed, if I come back to you real quickly, there's this trend, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not a trend. Maybe it's in the actual religion itself. And this is what I want of you. This gradual approach to fasting, this gradual fasting where kids do like half a day fast, right? To kind of help them build up to a full day fast. I think we call it a jiri rosa or something, like a bird rosa, depending on what region you're from. I'm sure every culture has its own name and terminology associated with it. But they fast either every other day or they do half fast. Is this supported by Islamic jurisprudence, fiqh? Is this in fiqh? Or is this something that people have just made up? And is it bad?
Yeah. Okay. Before I answer this question, I'll just take on what Sister Hena just said
Please, yes.
just a second ago. But the fact that, you know, when children are tired and the teachers know that what's going on here, whether it's just tiredness, whether it's lethargy, or, you know, is the student going to really is dehydrated a lot? So which will lead to them maybe faint or really fall sick or vomit or something like that. So there's a difference. We have to be, I mean, of course, the teachers use their wisdom a lot, much better than anybody else can, because they are seeing the scenario. It's important to differentiate between just tiredness and a person really, really going under the radar and it's dehydrated and going to be really sick. So that way, you know, because we are going to be tired. I mean, you and me are tired. I mean, I'm sure Sister Hena, she's teaching in school. She must be returning home very tired after work in the month of Ramadan herself, especially dealing with all the situations that happen. So that's one thing I wanted to put out there. The other thing you said was about this thing about half fast. There's no jurisprudential thing about, you know, for young people to have a half a day fast or something, whatever name you give it to. But the point here is that you have raised is quite crucial. You know, for a child, whatever kind of child it is, their role models are their parents, and their heroes are their parents. So whatever they see their parents do, they will try to emulate. And it happens from a very young age. Remember my brother and all, 4 years old, they want to fast. And they said, no, you don't have to fast. You know, so mom would do a certain thing. Okay, fine, you fast. Because they're very keen to have suhoor and all that. There's firni and there's nice stuff over there and parathas and all that stuff. Whatever people eat in whichever culture they are. But the point is the child is excited more about it than the adult, because for the adult, this is a responsibility and a duty to do it. For the child, is exciting. That's when you can do all these half fast or chiriya rosa or whatever you want to give a name to, and so that they get into the flow in the month of Ramadan. Okay, so that way what happens is at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11, the child will try to emulate their parents as much as they are allowed to. So that's when parents have to treat them as, you know, yes, they would like them to do it, and they should be encouraging them to do it in a wise manner and in a playful manner. And that's when you teach them how to do the fast. For example, the child will always want to play. So they're going to play out in the sun, especially where, you know, our families come from in those countries. If you're going to play out in the sun, then it's not going to last. That even a half a day rosa will be very hard for them.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
important for, like Sister Hena said, communication is extremely important to teach the child how to do the rosa, how to do the fast, so that you don't fall into tiredness or into thirst. For example, if you're doing it till
Yes.
12 o'clock, so that by the time they reach 9 years or 12 years, 15 years, whatever the age might be, when they have to fast, then at that age they are ready. Also use the months of Rajab and Shaban to gauge how your child is doing, so that in the month of Ramadan, if 9 lunar years have passed for a girl, then she should be ready. And she can only be ready if this kind of a culture has been happening in the home from before.
So the way you're speaking, I hear a lot of readiness, right? It's about that child's ability to be ready to go on and take this world of fasting and take it well, comfortably. And circling back to what you said previously at the start of the show, you said it's an obligation. It's an Islamic obligation. So should we
Yeah.
perhaps focus more on the readiness of the child, or
Yes,
should we just go
I'll
on the
I'll use
obligation part
this
of things?
I'll use this phrase again, which probably I'm tired of using it myself.
Haja,
Is
Hija, sorry, what was it?
failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And
Ah,
I fit this phrase wherever I need to, whenever I want to, and I'm tired of using it myself because it fits everywhere in every
it's a
walk of
nice
life.
one. It's a nice one. I
Yeah,
don't
it's a
think you
very
should
nice
stop
one.
using it.
So this is where parents' roles are important. So if you encourage the child to fast with them, let's say when they're 5 years old or 7 years old, for example, and they do like half a day or they do one day on the day of holiday or something like that, then that's how you prepare. That's make it a play and give them stories about Ramadan, how it is done, of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Imam alayhi salam, and teach them this is how the Rasulullah did it. This is how he taught them and the people of Mecca to fast in the beginning or whatever. So we need the parents fully engaged in the child's learning process of the religion.
Sure. That makes complete sense. Again, that whole logical approach, the common sense approach, and parents are the actual teachers. Nothing
Yes.
to take away from you, Sister Hena. You, of course, by profession are a teacher. And guess what? We know that you are a mom as well. So if I can come to you and ask, well, two sort of questions. But first one, circling back to what you said about communication, you spoke to me on a teacher's level. Parents come to the teachers, they email them, they speak to them face to face. But if we go up a notch to the school, the management, have you found it in perhaps recent times that schools themselves have administered some sort of a policy that makes it easier for kids to fast? Or have they done something that makes it harder? Or are they not doing enough? Should they be doing more? I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but talk to me about the schools, the management. Do they make it
I
easier or
think
harder?
again, just echoing on what Syed has mentioned, you need to, from a parent's perspective and from a professional perspective. My eldest son has just, mashallah, started fasting this year. He's just turned 10
Mashallah.
and he was extremely passionate about fasting. And I've, as a parent, put into certain practices into place in order for me to ensure his passion isn't diminished in any way. So, for example, I've created an inviting environment in the house. So he helped me put up Ramadan decorations in the house, for example. And at school, I've spoken to his school and he's no longer participating in after school club. They were very accommodating of that, the fact that he's fasting. He no longer plays football at lunchtimes, which he was extremely upset about. But that's something that we had a conversation about. And I was like, look, if this is something you are really wanting to do, which alhamdulillah, he's taken on board beautifully. I'm like, these are certain things we need to work on together then. And he took it on board beautifully, and so did the school. So again, putting into practices, this is going to work. We're going to have to do it. We're going to have to work a way around it. So we're not doing football club. We're not doing after school club. You come home from school. We're not doing tutoring after school is completely out the window. We're not doing our tutoring during
Sounds
Ramadan.
like a lot of
You,
restrictions, if you don't mind
it's
me
not
saying.
necessarily restrictions. I'm not restricting him, but I'm allowing him to fast because
Sorry, I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
no,
That's all I'm
I
doing.
appreciate that. But the way that he sees it, he's now also on board. He's like, mum's allowing, I'm wanting to fast, it's still so important and inviting to him, but he's working with me and the school's on board as well. So there's certain things in place and he's not fasting religiously every single day. I'm like, this is how we'll do it. We'll do 3 days on, 1 day off. Weekends,
Okay.
you can fast on the weekends. During the school days, it's 3 days on, few days off, and we'll play it like that. No
Okay.
after school club, no football
Interesting.
club. So you've got to work it with your child. I know it's his first year. Instead of me throwing him straight away in that deep end, we are working together. And then inshallah next year it'll be one step ahead. And I'm like, you did really well last year. So how about this year? We try go one step further and do it this way this year. So again, it's
Sure.
about finding that balance, not being too harsh. Remember, it's not a competition. You shouldn't be taking away the spiritual element away from this holy month. You should be heaping in, reaping in the benefits, and really allowing the child to taste the actual depth and the spiritual meaning behind the month, which is all
Sure.
about kindness. The way that we do it at home, it's charity, it's kindness, it's smiling more, working on things like this.
That's nicely explained. Did you say that he was doing full fast every other day? Is that
Yes,
your
so
approach?
that's what he's really passionate about.
Okay.
So before
Just
Ramadan
making sure.
started, we started with our half fasts, like you mentioned earlier. I was like, let's see if you are ready. We'll start with our half fasts. We had a calendar set up at home. He's got a tick chart. He's got stickers, just making it as stimulating as we can, providing that environment for him at home. So
Nice one.
I do think it does come from the home, a lot of it. Um, Invite schools on board, communicate with your school, communicate with your teacher, your children's teacher. Believe it or not, they also have the best interest of your child.
Mhm.
And yeah, just really go with the flow and take each day as it comes.
Yeah, with the concept of readiness, I don't think we actually touched upon it. We spoke of how to prepare them, take that approach, gentle, make it really lively, happily, any physical activity that's extraneous, stop that. But when it comes to sahur, nobody's mentioned that yet. Like, shouldn't we be feeding them the right stuff in
Absolutely.
before Fajr so that they can actually have a nice day that they're not feeling thirsty as much? I mean, for example, you give them yogurts and stuff, but that's what my previous guest said on our previous episode. No one's touched upon sahur. By the way, does your child wake up for sahur and do you feed
So
him?
I'm not a health coach. I have, I don't do nutrition or any of that. But I do know in our South Asian community, unfortunately, we are quite big on fried foods. And that's something I've tried to limit absolutely this year, especially since my
Oh,
son
I don't know
started
what you mean by
fasting,
that.
because I don't want him getting thirsty. I do not want him dehydrated, coming home with a dry tongue, dry throat. It is
And
you
struggling.
need to have a nutritious breakfast, fiber rich, porridge, Weetabix, dates, things like that, things that are going to last. And again, when he opens his fast as well, it's encouraging plenty of water throughout the evening, bottle of water during the night as well, in his room. Again, it's about obviously working with your child. You know your child best as a parent. You do know your
Sure.
child best, and you know what foods are going to become a hindrance for them in that fast, as tempting as they look.
Does he excitedly wake up though for sahur?
Oh my goodness, more than me. I started waking him up the first few days, and now he's waking me up.
Waking you up, like, hurry up, make me food. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Sayed, I'm going to come to you, and maybe you've answered this, but I want a firm sort of decision from you, if that's okay. When it comes to taking either a firm approach, it's wajib, underline that, full stop, end of, I don't care, tough, you have to do it, or the approach of being a bit more flexible. For example, parents cannot see their children thirsty and come home very lethargic, as you guys said earlier, just laying on the couch. They're like, you know what, son, daughter, if it's easy for you, do it. If not, Allah's forgiving, He's merciful, He's Rahman, and you could just make it up when you get older and stuff. Is that the right approach, or is the firm approach right? Based on your experience, what works best?
Right. Whatever Sister Hena has said, I'm going to add to that now. The
Please.
fact is that if you had prepared your child in the few years before, like
Mm,
her 10-year-old is doing now, and what you have to do is not just the action that he's undertaking or any girl is undertaking of not having food and water, along with the spirituality which she mentioned, which is the main thing of the fast, because the ayat of the Quran of fasting says لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you gain God consciousness, to be aware of God a lot more. So the reason, how are we aware of God? By not being very conscious of what are we saying, what are we doing, what are we watching, all that stuff, and also not fast and not eating and drinking and all the others. So to reach to that point where the time for firmness comes, this has to be done from before. And what happens, you will be amazed. I mean, you would be amazed. I mean, you've gone through this yourself, and so have I. And every person goes through the fact that when we are so excited, when we have been given the right attitude towards fasting, it's not just about how you not eat and drink. It's about the whole package of spirituality to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And remember, when you teach a child about religion from childhood, or whatever for that matter, that child will think that is the most important thing. And by the time it reaches the stage of taklif or responsibility, that's when it should come to a point where you don't even need to force or coax a child into doing that. He or she will know it's my time, I'll do it the way I should be doing it. If you have to say, no, you have to do it, then something has been missed in the past few years, in the preparation years. It should never come to that you have to coax. And, you can always encourage children, but any ibadah is qurbatan lillah, for the sake of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right.
Not for the fear of the parent or to upset the teacher or upset the Moulana. No, that's not fasting. That's something that the child is doing for the sake of the guardian, and that is not fasting. So yes, firm in the sense of before the month of Ramadan, or I'm going to be thirsty, I'm going to be hungry. Well, that's how it is. We will all be hungry and thirsty, and we'll be doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But remember, the preparation has happened right from the time they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Speaking of Moulanas, you referenced scholars, and I'm looking for like a quick yes or no here because we're over time already. Based on the world and the ever-changing world that we live in and the demanding school routines that kids have to go through, would scholars, so obviously these professionals, experts in jurisprudence that you're linked with especially, would scholars consider adjusting the fasting rulings based on these modern challenges that we're experiencing?
Listen, Ali,
I left the
challenges
biggest
have
one at
always
the
been
end.
there. Like you said, it's an ever-changing world. Challenges have always been there. And no scholar is going to mold the verse of the Quran, because it says you fast from dawn to dusk, and that's the end of it. So nobody's going to change it. No human being has the right to change it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave it that way, and that is how it will remain till the end of the world. It now comes down to individuals, what they can and cannot do. And that part, Allah is Rahman Rahim. But if I start saying, okay, Ali, yeah, in the summer months when the days are 20 hours, make sure you fast only for 14, that's going to be fine. That's not going to work out. It'll never happen, and it should never happen. It must never happen, because no scholar worth his salt will be doing that, because the Quran says whatever it is.
Yeah, it doesn't say from dawn till 12 o'clock or 12:50.
No.
So, Sayyidina and Sister Hena, I think we've all learned together this evening, especially I like to say, I'm pretty sure our audience members did as well. A huge thank you to both of you guys. It's been a very insightful and thought-provoking conversation that we've had tonight. Exactly what we set out to do, alhamdulillah. So thank you so much to our incredible guest, guys. That's Syed, Imran, Qaseem, and Sister Hena Zahra Jafry. I got your name at the end. And of course, a big shout out to you guys for watching, for staying with us, for being engaged. Remember, this is not the end. Ramadan is in its full strength, full force, guys. I'm sure Kibla and our sister guest would agree, to just take full advantage of these hours, days, nights. It's a journey, right? It's a journey of reflection. It's a journey of changing oneself for the better, inshallah. With that said, I'd like to remind you that we're going to be back here again next week, Wednesday. This is for the entire month of Ramadan, hence why it's called 14 Talks Ramadan Edition. And 8 o'clock every Wednesday with a brand new guest lineup. You won't want to miss the next one that's coming. Again, thank you for your time. And remember to hit that subscribe and like and bell icon as well. With that said, the clock has run, the time has run out. I bid you adieu. I will see you guys very soon next week, inshallah.